This is Andy Tube, and I'm back working on the Singer Model 338. After I did the wash, dry, and pre-oil and grease of everything, I've started putting parts back on there. I mounted the motor back inside. You're not going to be able to see that too good, I guess. Mounted the motor back inside with a new motor belt. Put all the wiring harness back inside and reinstalled the light fixture. And I put in the presser foot, needle bar. I polished all the tension and put it back together and set it to the factory 5 gram drag. And I started doing other tests with it, and one thing that I was doing was I was testing the Needle Position Selector bracket assembly, and I realized in none of my previous videos have I done anything about that. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to talk and show you how I test that and show you how to adjust that if it is out of adjustment. So we'll test it, and I'll show you how to you would adjust it if you need to. So this is the Needle Position Selector. So you just push down on a little bit and move it to the left and move it to the right, and that actually moves the needle position by moving the needle bar. I can get in here a little bit closer. I'm not sure how well you'll be able to see that. It's kind of in the shadow, but it's nice and shiny, isn't it? You know, it moves that whole, yeah, I guess you can see the needle bar moving there. Moves it left, right, or center. And that actually affects, if that's out of adjustment, that can affect the width of the zigzag stitch or bite. So the way that you would test for this, so wait a second, sorry, I got ahead of myself. So this is the Needle Position Selector, right? But this up here is the Needle Position Selector bracket right here, and you can see that when that moves the follower that rides along on the cams too. See how that whole thing moves? So that's why if this is out of adjustment, it can affect the zigzag stitch. So that's why I test it, and if it's out of the proper position, then I adjust it back in. So I'm going to focus on the needle and the needle bar during the rest of the video, but I wanted to just remind you and show you that bracket, and we'll come back to it and show you the selector. So the way that there's two ways to test this. There's a visual test and there's a paper test. But you wouldn't have imagined that. That's my best shot available. So I'm going to move the Needle Position Selector left. You can see the needle bars moving left, right? Okay, so you move it to the left, and you put the stitch width selector at number 1. And then you turn the hand wheel so that the needle is all the way down on the left side. Okay, I'll bottom it out there. Okay. Now what you do is you start moving the width selector from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, back to 3, 4, 2, 1. And what you do not want to see is that this moves. If it doesn't move at all, that is perfection. If it moves a little tiny bit, like you could kind of tell it moved, that's pretty good. If it moves much at all, that means that it's out of adjustment. So I'm going to move this to 2, to 3, to 4. Now my stitch width back to 3, 2, 1. And I'm not seeing it move at all. I'm not seeing this move at all. So I'm going to do it fast now, just back and forth. 1, 4, 1, 4, 1, 4, 1, 4, 1, 4. And it's not moving at all. So yay, hey, it's perfectly adjusted. Now, the paper test for this same thing, and I don't have the feed dogs put in yet because I may need to set the timing and stuff, and I want to be able to see in here. But I did put the needle plate on because I want to put a piece of paper in here and lower the presser foot to hold it. But it's not going to move because I don't have the feed dogs in. Okay, so I'm going to go back down to the left all the way to the bottom. So my needle position is left, my stitch width is 1. Okay, and then I'm going to turn the hand wheel like it was sewing, and it's going to move to the right a little bit, and it's going to move to the left. That's stitch width 1. Then I'm going to do 2 and back down to the left. Then I'm going to do 3. So I'm just making a little bit wider stitch every time, about 1 millimeter wider each time, and then I'm going to do 4. So it's just zigzagging back and forth, right? Making holes. Okay. Now I'm going to move my paper a little bit to a fresh point, and you just use any paper. I've done it with excuse me, I've done it with index cards. Usually I just use a piece of note paper or copy paper or a piece of envelope from junk mail, whatever. Now what I'm going to do is my needle's in the left position and my zigzag width is 1. And I'm going to come down on the left. Okay? Then I'm going to come up and I'm going to move the width to number 2. And then I'm going to turn the hand wheel backwards. Right? Backwards to go down. I'm going to roll it forwards towards me to get it up out of the paper. Then I'm going to move the stitch 3, width number 3. Turn the hand wheel away from me to go down left. Turn it back towards me, up out of the paper, and I'm going to go to 4. Turn the wheel away from me to go left, and back towards me to come out of the paper. And that's the test. So now I'm going to take a good look at these holes. You can turn that so the light comes through there a little bit. Yeah. So the 4 holes on the top here are the stitch 1, 2, 3, 4 widths. Okay. And the lower hole, which this is actually the position the paper was in. The second test, once when I did position 1, 2, 3, and 4, while moving the needle up and down between, it only made one hole. So that is perfect. What that's telling me is no matter what zigzag width I do, it's going to start in the proper position on the left. Now, if this hole was elongated, if the top hole you're looking at was elongated, or there was more than one hole, that would mean that the adjustment was out, because that needle shouldn't move when I test it. It didn't move visually, and now it has not moved during the paper test. All 4 strokes for width 1, 2, 3, 4 went down into the same hole. So that is a perfect textbook test of the needle position selector bracket adjustment. But what if you didn't get a perfect test, which I do find occasionally on these machines. So here's, trying to maneuver stuff around here a little bit. Okay, this looks like a good shot here. So if you're out of adjustment, the way to put it back into adjustment is going to involve moving the needle position selector to the left, like before, putting the stitch width on number 4 all the way to the right, turning the hand wheel towards you until the needle goes down to the lowest position on the left. And there. Then what you'll be doing is loosening this screw on the bracket assembly, and you'll be moving a bracket piece underneath that I can't show you on the camera, but it's how this piece connects to this piece, and you can feel it right there. You can feel the edge of it, and you can nudge this left or right when you need to adjust it. So to show you the standing view here, let's see, get up there and make sure that's pretty good. So you would come up here with your screwdriver and you would loosen the screw, and it doesn't have to be real loose. It's kind of like a set screw, so just, you know, a half turn or a little more, just so that it's adjustable. And then you're going to move 2 things at once. You're going to slide this bracket to 1 and back, and over to 1 and back to 4, while you move that bracket a little bit left or right until the needle stops moving. Whoop! I told you that lamp was acting up. So you'll be moving the needle position, keeping it left, and you'll be moving the width from 1 to 4, watching for the needle to stop moving while you're adjusting the bracket. And when you get the bracket moved to a point that the needle stops moving left or right as you change from 1 to 4, then it's in the right spot, because that's what you want. With the needle left and the needle all the way down on the left, you want to be able to move between 1 and 4 without any movement left or right. So you might start adjusting this bracket a little to the right, and that makes the movement worse. Okay, that's the wrong way. Then go back where you started and then nudge it a little bit left. And the adjustment increments are very small. You know, they're just like little nudges left or right. And when you get the bracket moved to the place where the needle will not move left or right while you're moving the selector width 1 to 4, then you're in the right spot, and then you just tighten the bracket screw. You tighten that bracket screw back up to hold it in the proper position, and then you can do your test like we did in the beginning. Selector left, width 1, needle all the way down on the left, move it back and forth without any movement of the needle back and forth. So that's how you adjust the needle position selector bracket assembly. And I bet you never saw that before. So, thanks for watching that. I hope that was interesting to you. And took me a while to get that up. I ran into a couple things when I was working on the machine. Slowed me down a little. I noticed the silver backing on the faceplate was flaking off and chipped here and there. But it's a beautiful faceplate because usually if anybody's taken it off, they tighten it up too much putting it back on, and you get cracks by all the screw holes. It is pretty brittle now. You know, it's what, approaching 50 years old. So I did have some silver paint that I just rebrushed the whole back side of this, and it came out nice. But it's a pretty tough paint, so I had to let it dry real well. And then when I was I put the presser bar and everything assembly back in there, and when I went to put the needle bar back in, this needle bar connecting stud, like on the 404, it's kind of one piece. On the 337, 38, 40, you know, it's a two-piece articulating held together by a little pin. And I saw that the pin was cracked, and I didn't want it to fail for whoever buys this from me. And I couldn't find a vintage pin or connecting stud or even the whole assembly any place to buy. So I went to the Ace Hardware, and the best I could do was a pin about twice as wide as I needed, and a little bit too big around. So I had to grind the circumference down and then cut the pin off and grind the ends to make it fit smooth into the connecting stud. So it's you know, fine, except it just took me a while to do that. So I've been working on it, but I had hoped to get this video up before now. But anyway, it's up now. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you come back to AndyTube and as I continue on with the 338. And I'll try and think of some more things I haven't done in other videos that'll maybe be interesting to you. Thanks for watching. Take care.